All right, looks like this is now being sent to YouTube. We can start. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another edition of, funnily enough, the weekly Sunday morning interview format show that we host on Mavin Magic. We've been conversing with a lot of people who've been deep in their careers before they came on this platform. But this time, I wanted to change tactics a little bit and bring into focus someone who's decided to make a mid-career transition of sorts. We let him tell us if it was a permanent transition or a temporary one. But our guest today is a content creator, and I like to call him an amateur historian, but he says not to call him that. A content creator on YouTube and Instagram, Tarun Bhargava. And his claim to fame, most recent claim to fame, is that he's reached 10,000 followers on Instagram, more than 2 million views across platforms. He has 2,000 followers on YouTube, and his content is gaining more and more popularity as the days go by. And my introduction to him was through one of his earliest pieces of content, which explained how Emperor Akbar used Hindi expletives, very, very strong Hindi expletives, and humanized Akbar in a way that no history book ever could. And I really liked that video. And from then, I've been following his content and appreciating everything he does. Though I should admit, I don't follow it on Instagram. I should. That's my next goal today. Once I go get off this discussion, I'll go find him on Instagram and follow him there. But the content that he creates is a way for us non-historians, people who are just curious about our past, to connect with the history of the subcontinent, not just the history that's taught in the books, but history from primary sources that Tarun looks at. And we'll be discussing all that. But before I do that, let me quickly read out an introduction from the horse's mouth, literally the way he said it, because it also shows a little bit about how he is as a person. I'm a software professional by profession, and with my last stint being a Geo Hotstar as a tech lead. I have always had a deep interest in history, and last year I decided to jump in and try to create a YouTube and Instagram channel that simplifies history in fun ways. Dastan by Tarun, that is the YouTube name. Dastan by Tarun has been a labor of love for me, and over time it has garnered a good audience on both platforms. So, Tarun, welcome. Thank you for being part of this conversation. I know we've been trying for a couple of weeks, but I'm glad you're here. So, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Sai, for the introduction. And yeah, uh, about me, I would say I was born and brought up in Madhya Pradesh, in a town that not many people know about. It's near Gwalior, basically. Yeah, so did my schooling there, and after that, I joined college in Madhya Pradesh itself for my engineering in computer science. Later on, I went to do a master's from IIT Kanpur. And then basically, I've been working with different software companies as a software professional for 7 to 8 years. So yeah, my journey, I would say, I've been someone who's been interested in reading about the world. Basically, I think I'm more interested in non-technical things than technical things. I mean, so so history is something which I figured that. Okay, how do I put it? I can read boring history, like, like if something is very, uh, it's like very academic, but it's still interesting, but it's
Mhm.
like long and long, and I can just read it. So there are books by historians. For example, there's a legendary historian called Jadunath Sarkar who wrote it before independence. Like he was between 1900s to 1950s. He was like, so he likes very boring history. Like it's like you can't read it. So I read all of it, and basically then I figured that I have something here going on, which which I find very interesting. And I basically tend to get some kick out of it, going into
So,
deep.
I
Yeah.
want to actually
Mm,
dig deeper on that. What do you mean
mm,
you get a kick out of reading history? What feelings do you get?
mm,
Is it like
mm.
I need to tell other people about it, or is it like, oh, this is interesting, and then you keep going? What is that feeling that you get?
Yeah. The feeling that I get, Sai, is that, um, is of wonder, in the sense that basically what we think of ourselves, but where have we come from, what we are. and all of us have a sense of our ancestors, like what your father was like, what your father's father must have been like, and so on and so forth. You if you are from one area of the subcontinent, you trace it to somewhere, right? You're like, okay, my forefathers would have been like this, they came from here probably, and all this.
Mhm.
So what makes me basically find it so interesting is like how when I read it, that for example, I'm reading something that took place near Delhi, and I figure out my hometown is near Delhi, so it's like 200, 300 kilometers from there. And then I realized that, okay, so this happened and this is how this person reacted.
Mhm.
And this is totally against anything that I would have assumed. That if you just asked me how this person would have reacted, it's like totally different from that. So it's like my ancestors were so different from anything that I can think of, anything I can conceive. I can't even fictionalize them properly if
Mhm.
I wanted to in an informed manner.
So you
So,
take history as a learning
hmm,
tool because you're like, okay, today we do this, today we
hmm.
do based on this inputs or these incidents, we react in such a way. But you look at history and say, oh, and this person did not at all do what I expected them to do. Is that
Yeah,
your
yeah. It's like a it's like great fiction, right? A suspense thriller. Or it's like that for me. That I get such a kick out of it. That like I can't put it down. Oh, this happened. Oh, this is like totally unexpected.
right?
I keep finding these things because I'm so interested in it. I keep finding so things which are counterintuitive. Let's say that's the right word for it. That it goes against your intuition.
Right. And you said that its history is basically built into us because we're always curious about where our forefathers came from, where our family lineage comes from. Does India have a strong or a systematic way of tracing lineage like that? Or is it like ad hoc? You just have to trust people's word and ask and ask and ask. And do you see that emerging, this interest in where we came from, those kind of things?
It depends. So a lot of so what used to happen and still happens in pretty popular in North India at this moment too is that there used to be these pandas in temple towns like Varanasi and Allahabad and all these places where they would keep records of your forefathers. So it's like if you go, they'll tell you your lineage from like 100 years, 200 years. It's available. So a lot of people do that. So it's like they can trace it, but
Mhm.
not sure about we are very different, right, in different parts of the country. So
Right.
yeah, so it's there. If somebody wants to take a look at what were their forefathers' name because they use whenever they would visit these towns, they will make an entry, and that's how it will go.
Very interesting. I don't. I mean, now it must be like with
Mm,
Varanasi and all the cities becoming bigger
mm,
and bigger. It must be more and
mm.
more difficult to find exactly which
Right.
temple and which panda, which family of pandas manages your family history. But it's interesting to know.
Yeah.
Now, the other day I was, and this is again like an aside, not
Mm,
really a question at
mm,
you. We were talking to a person from Malaysia. His name is Abby. He's a comedian
mm,
there. That's how I know him.
mm,
And he was saying that not Abby, sorry, somebody else. But he was saying that he was living in Malaysia. He's a sixth generation or something in Malaysia, but he's a Tamil Indian and Tamil Malaysian. And he said he traveled to India just to do that, just to do what he said. He came to South India to find out where he's from, where his village is from. And there was some friction because his family people who were still in that village or near that area, they were suspicious that this guy's coming to claim
mm,
property, and there was all this friction
mm,
between him, though he came with very innocent motives. He just wanted to find out where his heritage is from, but there was friction from the family, the extended family. But that's good. I mean, it's interesting that this drive to find out who we are is part of us. And is that how you were as a kid? Because you said you studied software engineering and computer science. You also have a master's from IIT. So clearly, it was a commitment that you made to yourself that I'm going to do software. But where was this kida, this germ that I need to focus on history also? Was it there from the beginning, or was it a new thing?
Absolutely not during childhood. I'll tell you, I was such a bad history. I mean, not only history, like I was good at math and, ratta maro science, which gets you far in our education system. But anything else, I was just, if you asked me in my class 11 or class 10 that whether who's who was Akbar's son and whether Shah Jahan was Jahangir's son or vice versa, I won't have been able to tell you. So I was that bad. It's all ratta maro that I did all my education years. It's only later, during my graduation that when I picked up some book, there was some book, I think it must have been William Dalrymple's book,
Hmm.
one of his books, which like just blew my mind away, which was my, you know, my
What was
entry.
this? What was so special about that book? Like maybe we can also
Hmm.
find that amazement and awe in
Hmm.
similar books. What did you feel when you read William Dalrymple's book and said, "This is it"? I mean, I really care about this stuff because it's been presented to me in a different way. What is that X factor in his book?
Yeah, I think first I read his book called
The City of Jinns. Is that his? That's his, right?
no, no, yes, it is just the second book, which is about. Okay, I'm not sure, but that I don't remember. That must have been the first book. But when I read the Last Mughal,
Mhm.
which is his later book, I think it came third or fourth book of his. That was just mind blowing for me. That's like I can remember that that just making me think a lot about just the entry point for me, so to say, in like getting so much interested into history, and that evoking that sense of wonder forever since then.
You have two children, from what I understand.
One
Do you?
actually.
Oh, I is it,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
maybe I
a
misread your Substack in some way. Maybe I
okay. Okay,
didn't
yeah.
pay attention. I thought there was a
Mm.
2-year-old and a 6-year-old. Is that not
No,
the
no,
case?
there's only 4-year old.
Oh, I was in the middle. Oh, the conflict.
It's
Understood,
fine.
understood. So, do you see yourself telling your child that
Mm.
science and jobs are okay, but you all need to focus on history and say more of the artsy parts of education? Do you see yourself doing that based on your own experience?
Yeah, no, I think even from history we can learn that how parents have a certain view of the world and they put them on their children. So, for example, I would say about me, my parents sent me for IIT coaching, like half of the country.
Right,
And those were the worst years of my life because I didn't graduate. I did my post graduation from IIT.
right,
But those couple of years, they were like I was not in touch with friends and all that. So those were still because my parents had a worldview. So for better or worse, they didn't know better, I guess.
right.
So I've seen the effects of it that I was maybe those 2 years I could have done something else. What if I read history and got interested into history? Maybe I would have been at some other place right now.
Right.
So yeah, but one thing is for sure that what I'm going to stress on is that you just can't be doing sciencey stuff, and just because you're good at science and math and you're doing a technical degree, it's just that our world is structured that way that it pays more, or it's more valued, but it's very important to look at the humanities and other subjects, and because they are philosophizing the world for us, that world of zeros and ones and atoms and bits. We need that philosophy that the humanities produce to basically make sense of this world, so they are very, very important.
So I hear you saying that yes, you'd like your child to maybe be exposed to the humanities, but you'd prefer not to push that on your child. It should just be organic.
I don't intend to push either of those. I would say, I mean, like at some point they have to find out what they're meant to do, and I would rather have them pursue something that maybe doesn't look like it has a great paying potential just 3 or 4 years down the line. That's how we look at children's education, and I'm not sure. I'm just saying
ROI.
this right
I
now.
guess
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
thinks ROI. No, I'm giving
Yeah,
so
so
much for
maybe
education. Uh,
maybe it will change when the push comes to show. But what I'm saying is, uh, what I found is that if you are really passionate about something, it's like it eventually ends up paying more than you being not being so much interested in something and being mediocre at it.
Right, right, right. So it's interesting that you said that there needs to be space for humanities because the first interview in consciously, I mean, funnily enough, consciously positive was with an admiral, sorry, a commodore in the Navy, and he was saying that when he went to NDA to do his cadet training, there was 70% of his education was non-technical, non-war related topics, and he said that's how it should be. And even now, from what I'm reading, all the IITs have introduced economics and other social sciences programs in the curriculum, so that children get a more, or students, not children, they are basically adults at that point, they get a more broader view of society and broader view of life. Now, I have been reading some of the stuff that you've been putting out, and there was one article which I really, really connected with, and I thought it was very interesting that you mentioned it. It was an article about how there is this haves and the have-nots, and it's a year old. Maybe you don't remember this, but I really read through that, and I found it really nice that you highlighted how there is a, I'm going to call it the caste system, but not really the caste system. There's this visibility or visibility gap between how the haves are perceived and the have-nots are perceived. Is that a historical trend? Like, do you see society, Indian society? How was it before? Was it ever the case that there was more equality, less equality? Has it changed? Is it going to ever change in your view?
Interesting. I the way I feel is that I think definitely we it's more equal today than before because uh, one of the complaints that I hear I heard it from historian Manu Pillai also, and that I've also found from my reading is that there are no voices of the oppressed. There are very little number of records of voices of the oppressed from the time. So we get it from the time 1900s. I mean, when British were the power here. So uh, Jyotirba Phule and all those people. But before that, you just don't have any records to make sense of what their life was like, what they felt was injustice, or how they saw the world. Basically, we have very few sources for that. So in that sense, kind of, I would say. Uh, at one level, I can say that, um, peasants of all castes and, all kinds of background were pretty vulnerable at that time because it's not a democracy and, uh, things change pretty fast and, there's just less certainty about things
Hmm.
and brutal times, obviously. So the peasants were oppressed, even in whatever golden age we talk, it, there has to be oppression even in those times.
Hmm.
And but even there are stratas between though that peasantry also. So peasants in general would have been the most vulnerable, and we don't get to hear about them, the irrespective of the caste or their background. And then even the most oppressed among them forget about their stories because we don't even get to hear the stories of the comparatively well-off ones or from the castes which were kind of in power. So yeah, it's a travesty that we have very few sources of making sense of the people uh, from those backgrounds to
Hmm.
basically make sense of their world.
And do you see that changing? Because from what
Mm,
I'm understanding, there's a lot of internal migration happening in India. And even I think there was a historian called a Japanese American historian, I forget his name,
mhm,
Fukuyama. He said that history is basically ended. Like he called it the end of
mm,
history when
mm,
some, I think
mm,
the 9/11 happened and there was some
mm,
inflection point, according to him,
mm, mm,
that history is basically ended. Do you see that happening in India, that we're no longer, the social mixing is so much, the internal migration is so much that we no longer have history being created anymore. I'm not
mhm,
quite
mhm,
clear on what that author meant by saying the end of history, and what is the outcome of so much social mixing. For example, if there was kingdoms and broad conflict that they could that could happen today, that would be historical. But now it's all mixed up, everything. We're basically no longer going to have epochal moments anymore. That's what I understand it as. Do you see that also, that because of the internal migration, because of the mixing of society, you also mentioned that it's changing a little, and Indian society is adapting to say people who are not from we are both living in Bangalore, so people from outside coming into Bangalore and having forcing, it's forced mingling, but it's still happening. Do you see those things being trend lines in the future, and how will it affect the evolution of society and history itself?
mhm. I think it's Francis Fukuyama who wrote that article. If I'm not wrong, his name is
Right, right.
Francis Fukuyama. I think what he meant was that, at the end of Cold War, that the new liberal order, that American-led liberal order that stayed after the end of Cold War, that's what he meant, that it has won conclusively in the world. Nobody is still asking about the other side being able to assert itself. And I think that's what he meant, that, now we'll have a liberal order, and, it's settled between nations to, be liberal in some sense. And interesting you mentioned that essay, because I was reading the music based on my reading, and, what I've been hearing as a criticism of that essay that he wrote. We are seeing exactly opposite of what he said, that that liberal order is falling apart in front of us. We can
Mm.
see that America is itself breaking that order. So it brings me back to the other point that you said, that about those epochal moments, they're not happening, or the end of history basically. So I would say it, people, whenever I read history, I find out that people always, in any era, they feel uh, they have the same feelings. So basically, people 300 years ago, or 200 years ago, 100 years ago, also felt the same as we felt. So in the sense that uh, they felt that, with this historical sense, right, that you were living history. This was
Mhm.
never there, basically. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
But large changes are taking place all the time. Every 40, 50 years, you can see. I mean, right now we are seeing this is an epochal moment. What's happening in US, and what it's doing to the world order. 40 years down the line, this will be the epochal moment of last 100 years, let's say, after 1950s. But we don't have that sense, right?
Yeah,
Because
we don't. I mean, not at all.
yeah, exactly. So I find this interesting, because you don't find this sense in even in the most most impactful of the events. For example, let's say 1857 revolt. So you're reading someone who wrote after 1857. So it's like the world has crumbled all of a sudden.
Mm.
So, anyways, till 1857, even before that, we were under British grip. But there was some veneer of some veneer of having some control, because the Mughal king was, uh, in the name, he was given
Mm.
obeisance and all. But that broke apart. So you're reading somebody in Delhi that his world is shattered, whatever he thought of the world, and still it's not as if they understand that uh, how how path breaking this event is, or how this will be looked at. So they are like just making sense of their condition, and just telling their day to day. For example, Ghalib is writing after 1857. He's writing how so basically, because it was a Muslim-led revolt, and so the British wanted to put all the blame on Muslims, so they basically prosecuted them, whoever was connected to Delhi court everywhere, and they they basically started that divide, basically. So Ghalib is writing that. Nobody is looking after masjids, but temples are getting all the materials, or the support from the ruling power. So he's just writing his day to day. He's not writing that this is going to change everything. This is going to
He's
lead to,
recording history. He's basically recording history without intending to.
yeah, without intending. So same things are happening right now also. So I would say we are living history, and 40 years down the line we'll look back at this time and go, oh, we lived through that. So yeah.
That's actually a fair point. That
Hmm.
the transformation of the global order is an epochal moment. We just don't feel it because, and
Right.
I think what you said about things crumble and we don't even realize it. Like what Lennon said, for decades nothing happens, and then in a few weeks and
Exactly.
decades go by. So, what is
Exactly.
your sense of those? In the past 100 years, there's been the
Hmm.
emergency in India, at least. There's been the
Hmm.
emergency.
Hmm.
There's been the
Hmm.
independence. Then
Hmm.
the nuclear tests were done. So, according to you, what would be some epochal moments in Indian history that in 100 years will be looked back and said, "Oh, you know what? That was a moment when things changed." In your view, what will that be?
Hmm. Interesting. I would say 2014. That would I would say the the
Is
the
that recency bias? Because I mean, yes, it's only the last
mm,
10 years that
mm,
the
mm,
shift happened from being a,
mm,
I guess, liberal social democratic country to
yeah,
a more right focused country. So is
yeah.
that because of recency, or are you genuinely saying that this is a cultural shift where India is now going to be a right liberal country, not a left liberal country? Is that what he's thinking?
Uh, there has to be some recency bias for sure. Uh, that's always there. But I genuinely feel this is something which is going to uh, basically what I'm trying to say is that this is something more permanent, and it's going to have larger order effects than, let's say, other events like the emergency or the liberalization or what have you.
And what could that be like?
Hmm.
I'm seeing uh, even now there's a peak, I think, in 2019 where the BJP led NDA got its maximum number of seats, and then it's coming back down. It's like the auto correction is happening in Indian society in real time. Do you still see that this is a permanent mindset shift?
So society in Indians are firstly we are because we are so diverse. We basically contradict ourselves. I mean, like in many things. I mean, like our society is like that. That you find the best and worst at the same time.
Right.
So whatever you say, about, let's say, the right wing shift in our politics, there are like still you can say so many things on the other side also that
Right.
still these things are there in our society. There are
Mm.
people who are fighting it tooth and nail and stuff like that. So it's saying that whether these changes are permanent or not depends on the scale of things. So if you're talking 100 years, I would say these are not permanent changes. But if you're talking about 40 years, 50 years, I would say that there's something, there's a slide that we are on, and there are some permanent changes that have already happened in the society to uh, hurtle us towards that's the end of the slide. So some things I find that they are kind of permanent. I mean, they would last for decades because the changes have been going on in the larger society. How I see my parents or my relatives or like just common people behave and change with time. So, but I would say they would definitely last for some decades. But who knows about longer time frames because we contradict ourselves in the way that our history also contradicts ourselves in a lot of ways. Sai, are you on mute? I can't hear you. One second. Shabana, Minu, can you hear Sai? Or is it just
No,
me?
no, no.
Okay.
I'm going to switch back to my default microphone. I think the
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Now,
Sorry about that. My bad.
yeah.
There was this Reagan Revolution, which was the culmination of a rightward shift in the American society from, say, 1967 or so, during Goldberg's inauguration, where there was there was a reaction to the changes brought about the civil rights movement. There was a reaction to that, and Reagan was the epitome of that, the peak of that. And then from he became the president, and then for the next 40 years, 30 years, there was basically, it's a right liberal country, the US, and it's continuing now. Do you see, like, it sounds like, in your view, Modi is probably, there was a rightward shift happening from 1989, 1988. Modi became the pinnacle of it. Modi was the right person at the right time. I don't know if the right person or not, but right time. He was the person best positioned to leverage the moment, and he became the prime minister. He's been the prime minister for three consecutive terms. You think that's similar, that there will be a mindset shift in the US? It was, we're not going to do things for people anymore, they have to do things for themselves. That was the cultural moment then, the conservative movement thought then. For us, it'll be, we've been living in a society where we give too much space to for everyone to just claim victimization, so we need to stop doing that, and move that way. So you think that's what's going to happen?
Uh, I think yeah, uh, the the ch- the larger changes exactly of the kind that you are saying that we are going to be less liberal and less accepting of the smaller groups. But like I said, there's still push and pull in different directions. For example, we tend to look at, even if we look at history and we look at our current politics, we always look at this angle between two communities. I mean, that's the predominant angle in the politics somehow. But there's still different structures in the society. I mean, different strands in the politics. For example, the Tamil, non-Tamil politics. It does has nothing to do with it, but it's prominent. It's not something that just can't. That's not at the same level as the push and pull between the two communities. So, but it's still there. Then you come to any other, then the Dalit, non-Dalit struggle, right? Because they are asserting themselves, and there are groups who don't want that. So that also is something which is taking place at the same time, which is like in the sense that which is totally different from the fight between the two communities. So what I'm saying is that it looks like that our politics is all about these two communities, but still there are like so many prominent strands in there.
Yes.
Uh, uh, and who knows which strand will uh, affect the other strand and become more prominent in the future. I mean, where the divide or where the basically the politics becomes centered on that.
Right,
So
right.
so yeah, so that's why I say that it's difficult to predict India because we contradict ourselves, right? So you would say that this is the main factor in the politics, but if you go deep down, you understand that is not the main factor. Maybe the class or caste is the main factor, irrespective of the religion. So yeah, so who knows? But I think at least for couple of decades, 2, 3 decades, I see that this trend will remain somewhere in the let's say the top 3, 4 political priorities of any regime. This thing will remain there, but there could be other strands that might pick up.
And really quickly to close out this
Mm,
conversation, this
mm,
high level, like societal
mm,
level conversation, do you see is this insight of yours, is that
mm.
informed by the history that you've been reading and studying? So is there any parallel to this kind of a shift, political mindset and political shift? Is there anything that you can tell us?
Hmm. Yeah, so just yesterday I was reading one interesting thing, which I'll tell you that okay, 1857 was something that everybody knows, and it's like that uh, turn of times, so to say. But before that, there was 100 years before that, there was the invasion from this guy Nadir Shah. He
Mhm.
came from Iran. Aurangzeb dies. His sons are incompetent, so they are just enjoying their time without taking care of the empire. It kind of starts crumbling in the initial days, and then this guy swoops in from Iran and just takes everything from the Delhi Sultanate, like all gold, everything he takes to Iran. I was just reading a dispatch from, excuse me, a Maratha envoy in Mughal camp. So this Mughal king who basically fought with Nadir Shah was Muhammad Shah Rangila,
Mhm.
and he was basically made captive by the Iranian, and then he took him to Delhi, and then he got the treasury opened and looted everything and killed a bunch of people in Delhi, and basically just then went back to Iran. So this guy is so at the moment when Muhammad Shah Rangila was captured by Nader Shah, he basically he called him on a ruse, said something like, "Come to me, we'll talk," and basically he captured him.
Mhm.
Something like this happened. So this guy understood that that now this is going to go bad in Delhi and adjoining areas. So this guy, this Marathi envoy, he runs and he goes to Jaipur, and from there he writes that the the Chagtai rule is ended, the Iranian rule has started in Hindustan. That's what he writes in a
Mhm.
dispatch. So very interesting that that's what he thought, that this is that this change with what I've just witnessed. It's like this big.
Mhm.
So but it didn't happen exactly the way he thought, right? Because Nadir Shah was not interested in ruling India. He was like, give me everything you have and don't question me, and I'll just go around. He was just interested in looting and going to his uh Ifsahan or someplace in Iran. But that didn't happen. But eventually that led to British gaining power, or because now there was no central force, and the centralizing force in the country became less became weaker and weaker, and eventually that led to first 100 years of India being divided between Marathas and Mysore Sultanate, and then Nizam, and then basically then British swooping in and just capturing everything from there. So what I'm trying to understand say is that that guy thought that this is how it's going to happen. He witnessed something. He's like, now Iranians are going to rule. The he said that this is the end of the Mughal dynasty. That's basically what he wrote.
Hmm.
That didn't happen, but the changes were severe. I mean, like in the sense they were epochal. So it basically we don't get a sense. I mean, like, it's very difficult to say. In the sense we say one thing and we don't know because there are like so many factors, right? That guy is not interested in staying here. He could have stayed. Maybe we would have been speaking Persia right now.
Yes.
Persian.
I have
So.
a so yeah, I'm going to bring it down to say
Hmm,
your day-to-day
hmm,
work as a
hmm,
content creator and an amateur historian. What does it look like? Where do you get your primary sources? I know
hmm,
you do a lot of really deep research. It's not just, oh, I'm just going to read some couple of texts and put something out. You do a lot of research. What does that work like? Do you get a lot of help? Is there like a structural, I mean, systematic way of getting information out of history, or do you have to do a lot of like back and forth and digging and help if you
hmm.
get help? What does it look like from your perspective?
Yeah. So I have like so many things to tell, and basically the bottleneck is not exactly the things that I want to present. The bottleneck is, the whole process, basically the conceptualizing it, and then basically digging some more in that particular story, and then basically creating a script that can be presented, and then basically shoot me speaking that script, and then giving it to the edit. So that's the bottleneck. So because I have like a list of hundreds of topics that I have written up, that these are the videos. Yeah.
I'm quickly going to interrupt. Do you have any do you take suggestions from people like, hey, listen, can you cover this?
Hmm.
Do you take suggestions from that?
Yeah, people keep suggesting, but that doesn't work for me. I'll tell you why. Because if I mean, there has to be genuine curiosity from my end.
It's
So
led by you. Your curiosity is what
yes,
you find what topic.
yes,
And
yes.
and I saw a few videos where you've discussed foreigners living in India as, say, officers of the court, or even, I mean, of
Hmm.
course, Mughals were Mongols essentially. That's how they're called Mughals. So they're from Mongolia, part of the Genghis Khan lineage. So what is like was India? How accepting was India? What is the history of? There was, I think, an Abyssinian minister in the Maratha court that you've talked about. What is that? Give us a sense of how open India was back then, and what was it like to read about these people you'd never expect to hear. An Abyssinian in a Maratha court living the life as the main minister, the prime minister of that court, so to speak. So how was it? What is your understanding of history? What was India like historically back then?
Hmm. Uh, one thing that bind India at that time was, I would say, after the coming of the Delhi Sultanate and then Mughals, basically, one thing that was quite accepted was this Persianate culture.
Hmm.
Whether you are from Kerala or any part of the world, there was just this acceptance of Persianate culture. Basically, looking at Persianate art, Persianate language, and court culture as the epitome of everything. So I find,
Persia was the France of Asia because everybody looks to
yeah,
all the Western countries
yeah,
look to France. Okay.
yeah. So that's something that I find that it had wide acceptance in the courts,
Hmm.
so to say. And anyways. Persian was the language of the court for Mughals and up till 18th century too. So in that sense, all records are in Persian. Everything their writing is in Persian.
Does that make your life difficult because everything is in Persian? You have to get it translated first.
I'm not translating Persian, forget about
Oh, why is
it.
that?
What I'm saying is those are primary sources. Sorry, I don't have the methods to explore them. I mean, even if it's just not about translation, I could just maybe give it to some LLM and get it translated. I mean, there could be ways, but that's not, I don't have the tools to make sense of it. So I rely on the people who have already done that. Uh, yeah,
You
so
basically read the writings of other people of that
yeah.
period and
Yeah,
basically
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you mentioned
And then if I have to dig more, then maybe I would go specific. There must definitely be the English translation of most of the things that I'm trying to dig in. So it if some historian quotes it as a some instance that this happened as the primary source in his footnotes.
Hmm.
Then I say, because I want to create a story around it, so I need to know the background and what is written above it, what is written below it, because this just can't be the story because that historian just mentions this, but because he can't mention the whole story of all things in that book but I get interested in that particular event. Then I basically dig around the footnotes and read what that chapter in that particular source, basically the English translation of it.
right, right.
That's how I go.
Two questions. One is you talked about AI, and also saw a recent video of
Mm.
yours where you're saying VO3, I think Geo3, I forget what the name is, but some tool that
BO3, yeah. Mm.
Google has launched which lets you create videos of
Mm.
historical figures, placing it in a certain time period in history. So do you see an LL, you're also using LLMs. So clearly you're using AI in two ways. One is to create like good visual content that people can see and understand faster than say just reading text. And secondly, using it for translations. Do you see how else do you use AI? What else help do you get from AI in your work?
Yeah, I get a lot of help. I use it day to day. Uh, Most importantly, I get it to basically polish my script. I think that is the best use to do basically once I've written the story.
Is it good at that? Is an LLM good at creating a visual like a YouTube or Instagram reel?
So I would say no. I'll tell you where it doesn't work well. So for every Instagram reel or the YouTube video, you have to think of a hook.
Hmm.
Hook in the sense that you have to think about what your first 5 seconds are going to be like. And that's very important, I've found over time, because that's what makes people stay or scroll away.
Hmm.
That's the reality, people. Please, you can't be speaking and saying, okay, I'm going to tell you about this. You have to say something, or either basically in the first 5 seconds, you have to evoke interest. Otherwise, that reel is definitely not going to work, or that YouTube video too. So
Hmm.
that intro, the hook, it has to be the hook that gets people in.
Right.
So I've been experimenting with AI to write those hook for me. I always have a hook in mind. So whatever story I'm presenting, I mean that is my entry point in that story. That, oh, this is so interesting.
Hmm.
This is, if I show it to someone, there's a likelihood that they will also find, oh, it's like that. That wonder it will evoke. That's how I select my stories. So I play with AI in the sense that I have that hook in my mind. So for example, I'll give you an example. I did this recent reel on uh, so we call a common person in India will call any white skinned person as Angrej, right?
Hmm.
We call them Angrej
Right.
because it's English and then it became Angrej. So English word itself is actually comes from Portuguese. They used to call them English, and then that is the bastardization of that is Angrej in our Hindustani language. But it didn't used to be the case before Angrez was the force in the subcontinent. So we used to call them Firangi and stuff like that. In South, I read that they used to call them Pirangi. So the even Firangi was changed, and they used to call them Pirangi. So I had this idea that uh, I came to this story when I read that Shivaji met an Italian named Niccolo Manucci in 1665, and Shivaji thought at that time that there's only one king of Europe who's worth talking about, which is King of Portugal.
Hmm.
everybody else is just minions, and there are no other kings. That's what he's told. This Italian, Venetian, basically was from Venice. I don't think Italy was an entity back then.
Right.
He told him that, and this guy is chronicling his book. His writings are a good source to understand about that time, about the Mughal time, because they gave a different view of whatever others have written. Uh, so 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 it's so basically I created a story out of this, that Shivaji had this view that there's only one Portugal is the country, or the Portugal king is the all powerful person.
Right.
Everyone else is just, not worth his time, or, not worth knowing about. Everybody bows down to the Portugal. But it was not the case even back then, because they were like, they were different principalities, French, all these kinds of, like, Europe is so diverse. Even Europe is so diverse, right? So, so now this is the story. Now the hook that came to my mind was that there's a Portuguese person standing on the Goa beach, and he's saying something like, "Hey, you Hindustanis, don't call me Angrez. I'm Portuguese. Okay, don't confuse me with this bloody English."
It worked, I think. Looked like it worked. I think I saw your message
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that came to my mind that, okay, using VO3 AI generated video, I would put a Portuguese person of that time with his clothing on a Goan beach, and he will be saying this.
Hmm.
So that hook came to my mind, and okay, so that's how I'll go. Now I ask AI to give me the hooks. I don't tell AI that this is what I'm thinking of the hook. Now I ask AI to give me hooks for this. This is the story. Tell me what should I do to, that would be an intro or a hook.
Hmm.
And I found that it never gets to, yeah, what I come up with.
Oh, interesting.
It yeah, so there it doesn't help. It says things which I feel, like that they won't make a good hook, in the sense that, the kind of content I make. So I almost never select the hook from what AI suggests. I mean, I even stopped asking AI for it.
Similar to what I experience when
Hmm.
I look
Hmm.
for try to create jokes. Like I
Right.
this is a statistic that I in my head that's true. That if it gives me 20 suggestions, 19 and a half will be completely useless. There'll be half which might have something I
True.
can with, but that's how it is. Now I have two more questions on this, and of course we can open it up to the
Hmm.
audience
Hmm.
also to ask
Hmm.
questions. So the first question is, you said India is contrasts. I also see that in how people react to you, because you were talking about how you get trolled and people call you an ARDA, sorry, ISI agent, and all those things. What has been your experience?
Hmm.
Is your audience genuinely curious about the history you present to them, or are they like seeing it as entertainment and a reason to troll
Hmm.
you? Question number one. The question number two
Hmm.
is, what are some two or three famous historians today whose worth is worth following and worth being aware of? So two questions, and then we can open it up to the audience.
Yep. Uh, okay, sorry, what was the first question?
Getting trolled, like what is your
Yeah,
feeling?
yeah.
Are Indians genuinely interested in what you create?
People are interested for sure. Even the trollers, I mean, they're just having some fun. I mean, I don't give much thought to that, because I genuinely feel that there are more people on the other side. It's just that trollers have a propensity to post stuff that can evoke a reaction from you. And I just don't react to trollers, because that is something that I've understood after like years of being on the internet. Thank God I'm not doing it in my 20s. That how it's just worthless to react to the trollers. It's just the best thing you could do to them for their own sanity and for your own sanity is to just let that comment be and let others react to it, actually, because there are other people who are in their 20s maybe who don't understand how internet works. Like, it just saps your energy, like, in the sense that you're getting hundreds of these. So how are you going to react to each one of that? So other people react to it, and that gives a signal to my algorithm that push it more, because more people are commenting. So
It
I
works to your advantage. Works to your advantage.
exactly, it works to my advantage. It works to my disadvantage if I react, actually, because then it kind of gives it a sense of what would I say, that that
Legitimacy.
Legitimacy, exactly. That's the word. That, that is also legitimate criticism. No, dude. I'm working one day on something and reading two, three sources, and you just commenting this is like this. It's not, doesn't make it legitimate.
Right.
Write a paragraph at least for me,
Right.
then I'll give you a response. So yeah, generally I don't.
So the second question was, which
Mm.
historians do you, currently working historians, that you think we
Mm.
should know about? I know there's Ramchandra Guha, but others.
Yeah. Uh, William Dalrymple's work is just great. What this person has done on South Asian history, amazing. The storytelling, especially, that I find like mind blowing. That's basically how I want to present history in video form. Like I could say that's my inspiration. How he writes. If somebody could present that over a video, uh, William Dalrymple, current historians, then. Manu Pillai is doing great work especially on South India. He has done like uh, some path-breaking books he has written. Yeah, these two people. Then there are others, Ira Mukherjee, which I have not read as much, but there are a bunch of them. But these two.
This make me ask two more questions. Sorry, sorry.
Mm,
Then we'll
mm,
open it to the audience.
yeah.
Question number one is, how expensive is it to be a historian? I mean, it looks like you have
Mm,
to buy books and you have to like
mm,
invest a lot
mm,
of effort and probably money in getting that information out of society. How expensive is it? That's question number one. And question number
mm,
two, since you were a CS person, you're working as a technical lead, but now you're a content creator, do you see yourself going back to that, or is this like a permanent shift for you? Two questions, and then we'll open that.
mm, mm. Uh, it's pretty inexpensive doing what I'm doing compared to what real historians do. I listen to a lot of podcasts where these historians go, and I've talked to them in some literature festivals about their process, and it just blows my mind away the way these guys function. I mean, uh, because they are going in unexplored territory. I'm just using their work, and basically it's already explored, right? It's written. It's just that somebody has to go and find out some more information and present it. But the historians' work, it's just so difficult. I mean, like it has to be a certain kind of person who uh, definitely doesn't get a high out of instant gratification of any sort, because it's like you have to chase and chase and chase things for years, and then something comes about, something new, something that presents new information. Otherwise, it's easy regurgitating. Any NLM can
Hmm.
consult a bunch of works and regurgitate a historical work, but people who are serious about it, they're doing God's work
Hmm.
seriously, because they are going to. So, for example, historian Ira Mokoti, she recently wrote a book on Awadh. So French were French. There were a lot of French people there in Awadh. So the general also, because by the end of 1700s, the French people and the British people were employed by different principalities to run their armies and all. So she discovered a French source in some attic in somewhere in France, and this was totally an explored source. So they're like this is the kind of stuff they're doing, which is like how forget about time, even money wise, it's so expensive.
Correct.
So yeah, their hats off to them what they do. My what effort I put in is like nothing compared to that. And yeah, the second question, yeah, I intend to basically make it a career out of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's the thought. So good that my channels are monetized now, and I'm just trying to find out uh, uh, how the monetization situation can work. It's growing.
Now's a
Yeah.
good time to tell us. I know it's Dastan by
Uh, Tarun.
Dastan by Tarun. Yes.
Dastan by Tarun. Yeah.
So that's the name on YouTube.
Mm.
What's your Instagram handle so more people can
Same,
discover
same.
Dastan?
The handle is Dastan underscore history.
Mhm.
Yeah, but the name is Dastan by Tarun. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I know I should have mentioned this before, but if you're Shabana and I think Meenu is here. If you guys have any questions or any thoughts to share on this, anything you want to ask Tarun on the nature of his work, history, anything, please feel free to jump in and ask. Otherwise, I'll keep asking questions. This conversation keep going on.
Yeah. So I have one question. So these days there is a lot of discussion in TV. There is a lot of debate about the changing history in the textbook. So how
Hmm.
do you see as a historian?
Sorry, I'm not a historian, Chavana, please.
Means you have the
I just
interest in
create
history.
content. I read history. I pakaya history. I read and I just present it visually.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
all I
Even
am.
though like someone who has interest in history, so
Yes, yes, because
a
yeah,
5 year or maybe 10 year
yeah,
down the line, you will read a different history. So how would like what is your interpretation of it?
yeah. Hmm. So I look at it from two angles. And I'm actually quite conflicted between what's the right way to look at it. So one angle is that our education system is such that how many people are influenced by. First question I ask myself is, I was totally disinterested in learning anything, or maybe the history was not taught the way I read in other books later on. So I was just mugging things up. So like I mentioned in the conversation that even if you ask me who came before Jahangir or Akbar or Babur, I won't have been able to tell in class 10, 11, 12. So it was like whatever was taught to me, I was just mugging it up. So the way I look at it is that they could have written anything in there, and I won't have thought twice about it and just mugged it up and written in some exam. So it could be the worst things, or what's happening right now. So one way I look at it is that okay, so I was not some backbencher in school. I was I was one of the brighter students. I was getting good marks, and even me, I didn't understand what's written there, and I was just mugging things up. Okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, and just write it up. Just know three, four names: Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, for the recent history, and some few names from before. So one way I look at it is that even the bright students are basically just our education system is such that they are just mugging it up. So how much does it affect? Like if somebody would have written the most vile things about a historical personality, I'm not sure I would have given much heed to it, or I would have remembered it, because most of it I anyways don't remember. And I've not seen this change over time. Like we are still, IITs are a thing, like this whole thing, this kind of rat race of sorts, that's how the education still is. So one way to look at it is this, that uh, maybe it doesn't matter as much if the people are mugging up, but that's influenced by my experience, right? Because that's maybe my class, my school, my teachers. But there are people who basically learn a lot from their books, and yeah. So,
I will actually jump in and add to
mm,
Shamala's question. You've been reading a lot about, say, the Mughals and
mm,
the Maratha
mm,
kingdom,
mm,
and you have some recollection of what was taught to you about the Mughals. If you
mm,
would say, I'd add this one little tidbit about the Mughals that history books didn't contain today. I mean, whether it's the fact that they used to use language other than Persian in their day-to-day affairs. I mean, that's my understanding from one of your videos, that they used very coarse Hindustani type language. Though the Mughal Emperor Akbar was using language like that, it's surprising to me to learn that it humanized Akbar in a certain way. Now, what would you do? What would be that nugget that you'd add to the history book today, which clarifies a bit about how society used to be? If you, and of course, again,
mhm.
the NCERT is choosing something. This is choosing to highlight different aspects of the Mughal rule and other ruling kingdoms. What would you do?
Mm. So at least it's very difficult to add anything to NCRT books, in a sense. I mean, forget about what's happening right now, or politics of it all, right, left, whatever. You remove it all from the picture. One thing I would say, it's very difficult to write anything in NCRT books, or to add anything to NCRT books. I'll tell you why. It's a very difficult job to write NCRT books. And that difficulty is something that is stopping the current dispensation from totally changing its structure in one go. They can't, because it will just blow back. They're doing it bit by bit because they are very incompetent people. And those incompetent people know that there are certain limits. They will be laughed upon if they do it in one go. So I'll tell you why it's difficult, because they're compressing so much information.
Hmm.
that they have to make such tough choices about things that we can't conceive this. Writing about Mughals in maybe one chapter or two chapters, and then writing about southern kingdoms in one chapter, or pre-modern India, Delhi Sultanate in maybe one paragraph. It's very difficult. You have to just think about it. There are like four people who can write 1,000 pages on any particular period of history.
So
Yeah.
should schools be exposing children to content like yours so that they get
Hmm.
students? I mean, it's a 30, like a 2-minute reel, will give you more insight. Like, should we be expanding our education so that it's not just books, but teachers and parents, like, go check out Dastan history on Instagram, because that'll give you a little more clarity. It might not be perfect, but at least it'll give you some insight on what court life used to be like. Do you think that's a viable approach to take into education?
No, I don't think so. I'll tell you why. Because for every Dastan by Tarun, there are 1,000 troll pages of all kinds. So if you, it's very difficult to sift through. So maybe parents can, because at least they have a bigger, better understanding than kids. That okay, this is maybe more reliable than others. So yeah, there's a difficulty there. Basically, you know where I'm coming from, that there's like so much out there that if you just rely on, oh, learn it from YouTube or from Instagram, they're not going to end up in my page, because there are pages who are doing certain other things, and maybe they're working better, that works better than this. So yeah, there's a danger there. What I would say is, what the first question you asked was, the one tidbit from history that I would like to have in our NCRT books is that uh, how uh, how powerful the concept of Mughal kingship was in India, irrespective of which state, which language you spoke, wherever you were in the subcontinent, like how we looked up to that as a symbol of power.
Hmm.
So that some sense of that basically I would like to bring to our NCRT books, that
Mughals were like
this
a
is how people conceive.
they were centralizing force, in effect they were the
Yeah.
they were the India that was India before India became India, essentially.
Yes,
People
exactly.
looking up. Okay.
Yeah. So one concrete example of that would be that, in 1857, there were the like scores and scores of sepoys, and they're just going to Delhi. Why are they going to Delhi? It's a very important question to ask.
Hmm.
They're of Bengal regiment, who started the mutiny, and they are somewhere in Western UP, Eastern UP, or from like Punjab. They're deployed somewhere, and they're all congregating to Delhi. And just this fact, if you explore it more, and William Dalrymple talks about it in one of his books, I think The Last Mughal, that these people, this person is like, it's been 100 to 150 years before any of his previous kings were any power of any worth in the subcontinent. They've lost all power. It's been Aurangzeb died in 1707, 1730s. I think Nadir Shah invasion that I talked about happened. So it's like the Mughals are just the power in the name in 1857. It's like 120 years after
Hmm.
anything, but still, I would say it's kind of a feeling of apnapan ki ye apne hai. It's
Hmm.
something like this, that it's not like symbol of power. It's like they are ours. This person is ours. That feeling, that I find that wonderful, and I would like to create a video on it, that because that's very counterintuitive, right? That the sheer acceptance, irrespective of caste, class, language, whatever. There's a sheer acceptance that these are our people. They are here for us,
Hmm.
and whatever power and name they have, it's still worth a lot. So that's one aspect that maybe something can be added in a book, in a history book, which gives this sense that this is what it was like.
All right. Okay, cool. Minu, anything from your side that you want to share? Okay, thanks for another ingredient. I think Minu doesn't look like. Oh, there she is.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to go off because I need to leave for somewhere, but it was a very
Okay.
interesting session. I don't have any comments for it. I myself was a history student. I did it at graduation
Mm,
level, so I have a deep
mm,
interest in the subject, but you beautifully explained a lot of things.
mm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I think that basically brings us to the close of this interview. Tarun, I've been wanting to talk to you, and this was really insightful. We've covered a lot of territory, and there's always more to cover.
Yeah.
There's history today, history yesterday, history from thousands of years ago. There's all this stuff to cover, and the future. But we only have 1 hour, and I appreciate the time you took to spend with us. Once again, it's Dastan_history on Instagram and Dastan by Tarun on YouTube. Please do find him, follow him, and if you find his content reliable, please share it with your friends and family, of course. Tarun, any last words from you?
Thank you, Sai. Nothing else. It was very interesting, and I just didn't feel we are already 1 hour into this discussion. Like I told you, I can talk hours about these things. So yeah.
We need people like you. Like we need people who are
Mm,
following their passion and not just being software
mm,
developers
mm,
because it gets the money.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me here, Sai and Shabana. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shabana. Thank you. We can end this meeting if you want, Shabana.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Thank
Tarun,
you.
I'll speak to you later. And I'll share your information.